be with this house, with this worshiping community, and I am grateful for that opportunity today. It is especially exciting in that I understand that you are in an interesting time in your church. I mean, both within the United Methodist Church at large and Moseley Memorial United Methodist Church in specifically. We also join Jesus at an interesting time in his life. Not too awfully long after having visited his friends, the sisters Martha and Mary in Bethany, having learned and wept over the death of their brother Lazarus, and having raised said brother from said death, Jesus has retreated into the uncertain wilderness of Ephraim, an evasion of lethal pursuit by the chief priest and his supporters. Jesus remains there with his disciples until the season of the Passover approached. For such, he makes his way onward to his triumphant entry into Jerusalem, but first, he returns back to Bethany to visit his beloved friends. He arrives to a dinner thrown in his honor, served naturally by Martha, who, as a little aside, her action here is described by the Greek word for servant, diakonos, for which many a mainline Protestant will recognize as the origin for the word deacon. Martha serves the meal to all. You'd think Lazarus would be a little bit more generous and helpful, especially to the guy who just raised him from the dead, but no, Martha serves all. While she does what is expected, what is typical of her, so too does her sister Mary follow character, as she immediately devotes her full attention to Jesus. She makes an elaborate, fragrant, and perhaps even a bit embarrassing gesture in honor of his presence, in knowing who he is and in perhaps knowing what is to come. The extravagance of it all is met with disgust and anger. While the other Gospels distribute the brunt of the resistance among the disciples and those present, John solos the voice to that of Judas Iscariot, who he introduces as the one who is about to betray Jesus. Judas argues, why was this perfume not sold and the money given to the poor? Poverty was rampant and excessive in the area at the time, so why not use this expensive resource to aid the many in a worthwhile way rather than in this elaborate display? How is this responsible? How is this what should be done? What made it worthwhile? The editors of the 1952 New Interpreter's Bible Commentary tease it out this way. They write, "This is an argument with which the church is constantly confronted. For too many people hot and eager about social reform and impatient for the betterment of the material conditions around them, the church seems nothing more or less than an irritating irrelevance. Its labors are sheer nuisance, distracting people and turning them aside from the real things requiring to be done, inciting them to lose their way among and waste time upon what does not really count or matter one way or the other, while its worship seems to them an absurdity that gets one nowhere. To suppress religion, which provides an illusionary happiness, is to establish a claim of real happiness." The editors go on, "These confident critics have no understanding of what the church is doing, of the inspiration it gives to many, which sickens them of self-centeredness, of the powerhouse it is, generating far more generosity and brotherliness than anything else in the world. All that they do not know, or to all that they resolutely shut their eyes, and for the moment, more and more are deserting Christian worship, see no sense in it, and frankly, angered by it. Do something material for the poor. that is practical and helpful and worthwhile. But all that the church stands for ends in nothing and is simply silliness. So Judas Iscariot thought confidently in his day. But Jesus Christ did not. "The poor you always have with you," he said, throwing his protection around Mary, who must have been taken aback by Judas's attack upon her. "But you do not always have me. Let Mary keep such ointment as is left. She may help to prepare for my burial with it." Here, John leaves the overall response to this action kind of vague and moves along with the larger story arc. But Matthew and Mark proclaim that Mary, the woman with the costly perfume in the alabaster jar, will be a legend for what she has done this day. Luke goes even further with the most detailed depiction of this event, introducing Mary as a sinner who in this action is saved by her faith. She is redeemed in this very ethical application of her love and service to Christ over and against that of the self-righteous, yet entirely inactive disciples. This story is one of the few that is depicted in all four Gospels. Its consistent element is that of the ritual of anointing, divinely preparing Jesus for his death. If there was shame for Mary's practice of humble service, so further would there be shame for yet another religious revolutionary who was just going to die like all the rest. Jesus went on to die. Jesus dies. Humans die. Movements, conferences, cities, churches die. Where there is hope in the death of Jesus, and perhaps in other instances too, John goes on to write that no one has greater love than this, than to lay down one's life for one's friends. The prophet Isaiah, in this morning's Hebrew scripture reading, describes a crossroads for God's chosen people. The Israelites are under Babylonian captivity and are faced with the reality of the end of their identity as a community of believers. The prophet argues that God, who makes a way in the sea and a path in the mighty waters, who brings out chariot and horse, army and warrior, they lie down, they cannot rise, they are extinguished, quenched like a wick. God, who delivered you from captivity in Egypt, says, "Do not remember the former things, or consider things of old. I am about to do a new thing." The Lord God goes on to deliver the people Israel from their bondage, delivering them into something entirely new, meanwhile sustaining them during the in-between time, providing water in the wilderness. Mary provides water in the wilderness for Jesus in the in-between time. Love and service between what was and what is yet to come. I do not know what the future for the people of Moseley Memorial United Methodist Church looks like. Yet even as an outsider, I have gained glimpses of the love and the service, the water in the wilderness it has provided through its legacy. A legacy that includes my co-worker at the Science Center, a musically inclined Lutheran, to on greeting ask me the validity of rumors he has encountered about that lovely church he went to that practices the love feast. A legacy where good folks like Inez Southard celebrated culture and faith with Mardi Gras parties. A legacy that inspired my own, now 20-year-old stepson to voluntarily spend Saturday nights with his grandparents throughout primary school just so that he could be here for Sunday service. I do not know what the future looks like. My hope, my prayer, is that God provides you with water in the wilderness during the in-between time, sustaining, perhaps reigniting you for the wonders of something